What's a mook?
A mook? What's a mook?
I don't know.
What's a mook?
Okay, so The Shining. Do you want to talk about The Shining for
Sure.
a little bit then?
Yeah.
Because maybe that's your number one.
It is.
Okay. So The Shining is your number one. It's my number two.
Okay. I think the reason I put it as my number one is it's just I don't know if I can find a more iconic movie than this as far as haunted house movies go. I don't think it's the scariest movie. It's just the imagery in The Shining. You can't get that stuff out of your head when you see it.
Oh yeah, there's so many iconic things, right? Like the blood on the wall, like the two little girls in the hallway. Mm-hmm. There's the blood coming out of the elevator.
Yep.
Like some of these just very memorable.
Danny riding his little scooter, through the hallways.
A lot of iconic lines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even just the hotel itself is an icon. The
just
room,
to see it, or the
any
atmosphere
room,
of it, like
room 237.
the music.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about that movie now, and there's not a lot of music in the movie, is there? Like.
I mean,
I guess
you know what? I think there is.
It's kind of subtle
but
for the most part.
The thing is, I think it's just there's
that kind of like it's like this sound. It's almost like ambient sound.
Yeah, a lot of it is an ambient sound, and there's definitely a lot of stuff that has no music. I think that's why it feels like there's not a lot of music. Cause, there's a little bit of Wendy Carlos who's worked with Kubrick on a few of his soundtracks. She created some original music. There's also some Christoph Penderecki tracks in there, like a lot of the crazy string music that you hear, but a lot of it is just this like droning ambient sound.
Yeah,
that's just
which is very suitable. It's like maybe not like these memorable melodic orchestrated scores, but it's chilling and it's actually good stuff to listen to.
I find Kubrick's style in general, like his movies, any one of his movies that you watch, it's like they're hypnotic. They can almost kind of put you into a trance and. In some ways, maybe The Shining more than any of them, because he's doing horror.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. Maybe, like, I think kind of The Shining and Eyes Wide Shut would be the most hypnotic for me.
I think I'd agree with that. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely some stuff also, I think, with 2001. Even Barry Lyndon, it's the fact that it's his style where he really lingers on moments.
Yeah. See, I still haven't watched Barry Lyndon. I've been meaning to watch it for so long.
It's not that scary. There's not even, I don't think there's even one ghost.
To be scary,
I know, I'm kidding.
But in terms of
we were trying to find ways to get it on this show.
Yeah. In terms of the hypnotic aspect of it, I don't know anything about.
There's a horror parody called Scary Lyndon, and that's a whole other movie we can get into.
Is that real?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, the great thing about The Shining is like while you're watching it, you're also kind of thinking like, are there ghosts? Or are they going crazy? To me, the real confirmation that there's true ghosts is who let Jack out of the cellar when he was locked in. And I mean, also Shelley Duvall later in the movie, she also literally sees some ghosts. Mm-hmm. So that's got to be,
Well, yeah, there's all those little like hallucination moments. When she sees, say, that bear costume guy who's sucking the dick of, I don't know what the hell he's doing.
Yeah. Well, hey, did you notice that there's like a trap door in the back of the suit? Did you know that?
Oh, no.
Yeah, there's a trap door. Like his ass is just sticking out at the end of that suit.
Here's Johnny.
Yeah, okay.
So just
there's
some words for thought there.
A little bit of weirdness going on there.
Yeah. Did you ever see The Shining TV remake from the 90s?
No.
It is terrible. But I think Stephen King prefers it because it's more accurate to his book.
I mean, that's fair. I don't like if I'd written a book, I'd probably prefer to see my own work treated like. But it's a very interesting position that he's in, because in that situation you've got a real master taking your work and doing something original with it and altering it. Like normally I'm really against changing an author's work, and when filmmakers go and try to be like, oh well, we're gonna adapt the book and we're gonna do like our own thing with it, because usually they make it worse.
I've always thought that there's nothing wrong with doing an adaptation that's completely different, but that should be because there's already been an adaptation that was so close to the original source material that at that point the only creative thing to do would be to do something different.
Yeah.
But if something hasn't tried to accurately adapt the source material, that should be the initial goal. That's just me in general. I just feel like, if I'm reading a book and I'm going to adapt it, I want to try to adapt that actual book as close as I can.
Right.
Unless it's something that is beyond being cinematic, that obviously there's certain things you might have to adjust for the rules of cinema. But I would first want to try to adapt it as truthfully as I could. And if I can do that properly, then hopefully maybe people later on can reboot it in a more creative, offbeat way. Mm-hmm. But there should always at least be existing a version that is truest to the source material before you kind of go into doing really funky experimental stuff.
Yeah. But would you tell that to Kubrick?
No, I would not.
See, that's the thing, is it's like that breaks the mold or whatever. It breaks the rule.
Yeah.
You know what? I would tell Kubrick to do it differently. Fuck his vision. He should have done.
Well, even in more recent years, Stephen King actually has come forward and kind of admitted that Kubrick's movie is a good film. It's just not a good adaptation. So he's warmed up to it being, he understands it as an important piece of cinema and that it's great for what it is. It's just not a good adaptation of his book. So, you know what? I think that's all I really wanted from him, is just, because I think that is fair. It's not a good adaptation.
Yeah. I mean, it's an accurate thing to say.
Yeah.
Hopefully he can enjoy the movie for what it is, but if you're going to go into it expecting, the book translated to screen, that's not what you're going to get.
Mm-hmm. But I do know that after The Shining, had it contracted that Stephen King had to personally approve of any future directors who would be adapting his works because of what happened with The Shining. And I think The Shining did well, but I think there was a lot of people who were actually disappointed by The Shining when it came out. Like, they were expecting something much better from Stanley Kubrick. And then weirdly over time, they warmed up to realizing what it was.
That's just it. Often that's the way that it is, right? It's like you don't know what to expect, but you're expecting something. And then you kind of get this thing and you're sort of like I remember when The Dark Knight first came out. It wasn't quite what I was expecting, and I was sort of like, I don't know quite how I felt about that. I mean, there was a lot of things that I liked about it, but it's like it didn't quite match what I kind of had in mind. But you have to then, in the process of getting used to what the thing has become, you start to see it for what it is and digest it and absorb it. And
Well, is that thing you were saying before about that expectation thing? It's like you expect this thing, when it doesn't deliver that expectation, you feel cheated, but then you realize, well, why would the thing turn out exactly the way I'd want it to be? Of course, that's probably not going to be the case. I mean, occasionally that can happen, but it's very rare. Like, to be honest, one of those guys was Steven Spielberg.
And he's like, Stanley, what did you do?
No, well, it was the opposite.
You messed
it
up
was
your movie.
Like he kind of like tiptoed around a lot of things, I guess. He would say complimentary things, but he was saying it in kind of a way where
that's what I always do with your films.
Oh, that explains it. Yeah. Well, I've always thought of you as
nice,
you're kind of a Spielberg to my Kubrick, right? So, but
well, I made a lot more money and I'm still alive.
So he was saying all of these sort of nice things, but Kubrick was kind of like, well, clearly you didn't like my movie, so like tell me the things you didn't like. And I think mainly more than anything else, he just had these different expectations. When you just hear like, oh, Kubrick's gonna make a horror movie, I don't even know maybe what your expectations would be, but you'd maybe think like, oh, this is gonna be a movie where I'm gonna be traumatized and I'm not gonna maybe sleep for a week.
I mean, in some ways, like Clockwork Orange has got some horrific.
It's probably
elements.
more disturbing than Shining in many ways. Yeah. Do we want to talk about, I don't know, Shelley Duvall's experience in the making of it? I know so many people these days like talking about that stuff.
Pulled all my hair. I pulled hunks of hair out on the windowsill. And the back got caught.
Need you trim that.
Hunks of hair.
Oh, look.
Okay.
Because
it's funny watching behind the scenes of that, because it seems like there's nobody fucking there. It seems like a little indie film crew, like
Filmmaking. Get these things. We make it up as we go along.
Like you or me shooting a movie.
Well,
it's like,
Kubrick,
okay, let's get our actors, and I got the camera, and all right, let's go shoot this seen. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems like such a small
Kubrick
scale
was
thing.
notorious for working with very small crews.
Yeah.
And I agree, because I mean, like, making movies, I realize the bigger the crew, the slower production becomes.
Yeah.
Kubrick could probably do every job of every crew member on that. So, you know, he probably didn't need the help of a lot of other directors. You just have people to kind of speed things up. But he was really probably
Like he shot a lot of it himself. I think like he spent a lot of time behind the camera.
Yeah. You go on a movie set and there's like 80 crew members in a studio. It's like, what the hell is that all about?
Yeah. I feel like especially nowadays too, right? Because I don't know, it seems like this technology has kind of simplified itself enough that like, why do you need all these people? But at the same time, it's like once you've developed a formula and a process for doing things and producing a product, you just keep doing it that way until somebody comes along and creates an innovative procedure. But it's like if you're a studio or production company and they've been making films a certain way for, you know, decades, it's going to be hard to change that process. I almost feel like it's just a lot of these productions are not rethinking the process of the production when they could really benefit from doing so.
Yeah.
In terms of like saving money and being more efficient and that sort of thing. But whereas I think Stanley Kubrick did exactly that. I think he kind of rethought it and was like, what do I need? And let's just scrap everything that is unnecessary.
Do we want to talk at all about, I mean, God, there's all the conspiracy theories about the movie, all of like the people's theories about, you know, what the movie's really about, all these little, you know, did you ever see the documentary Room 237?
No. I think you were telling me about it.
It's just a documentary devoted to a number of completely different people and their very different takes on what The Shining is actually about. And
it's like, why don't you just tell us, Stanley?
Yeah.
I don't know. I tend to think that a lot of these things are not as cryptic as people.
I agree. The more you know about actually Stanley Kubrick and how he worked, it kind of takes away a lot of the mysticism, you know? Yeah. I do think he was a brilliant man who was like super intelligent.
I've seen some of these videos where they're like way over analyzing The Shine, and they're basically pointing out spatial continuity errors within the layout of the Overlook Hotel.
I think I've seen that.
And they're like, you know, this is like Stanley's way of plotting this thing as a kind of labyrinth, which is changing. And, you know, in this shot, you'll notice that the guy opens the door in this direction, but in the other shot when it cuts to the inside, he opens it from the other way. And it's like, they're kind of, I think they're really just overanalyzing just a basic continuity error that happens all the time in films. And it's like, they give credit to Stanley Kubrick for that and not other continuity errors for that.
It's just become like a fun intellectual exercise for even people who might not even have a strong opinion to be like, I'm going to give my take on it. Like, it's arguably maybe the most analyzed movie ever. I mean, I think there's other movies that have been analyzed on a technical level. Like, I mean, people probably have analyzed, you know, Citizen Kane for its technical achievements, and you know, even like in like Psycho and other kind of movies like are very analyzed for what is there. But I don't know, Shining might be the ultimate movie that is analyzed for what is not there.
Maybe because it is such a psychological film too, right?
Yeah.
See fodder for that kind of interpretation.
Yeah. Well, what are your thoughts on the ending? Because again, that's another thing I guess that brings up always also a lot of theories with the movie is people's thoughts on the kind of ambiguous ending where you kind of just zoom in on the New Year's Eve photo on the wall that shows Jack Nicholson in the photo. Was that photo always there? Like, was that a photo where he was there in a previous life and that was captured and it was just there? And it's like, I don't think you need to even answer it.
But at the same time, I'm like, it's like if you're, okay, look, I come from filmmaking from a place of like, if you make a film or you make a piece of art, you're trying to communicate something. And the problem with these ambiguous endings is it's like a failure to communicate. It's like, what are you trying to say with this? If people have to sit there like scratching their heads pondering, I mean, maybe you do have something specific that you were trying to say that has just been lost on, you know, dumb people like me, but I don't fucking get it.
The Shining or
sure or lots of other ambiguous endings that just don't make any fucking sense.
If someone put a gun to your head and was like, tell me your thoughts on that ending.
Okay, well then I'm going to sit here and I'm going to process it and I'm going to be like, okay, well, he went with his family to the hotel. It was empty. And, you know, all this crazy shit happened. And then he tried to kill his family. And he ended up dying there, frozen in the ice. And then there's a photo of him on the wall from many years ago. And he had all these experiences. It's like, okay, well, that leaves me to think the photo is real.
Okay.
He is in the photo.
Mm-hmm.
Him being in that ballroom talking to all those ghostly people from the past, like, that seems to me to be clear that this is him coming back to this place that he's been before.
I mean, there's quite a lot of references.
It was as though I'd been here before. I mean, we all have moments of deja vu, but this was ridiculous. It was almost as though I knew what was going to be around every corner.
I like to think that, for one thing, that I shouldn't have to go and read the book to get extra clues to put this little puzzle together.
Apparently something that Kubrick was known to do, I think, with almost most of his movies, was to kind of be like, I'm making the movie in such a way that
if
you
put
should
these
read
two
the book.
together,
It's like, if you read the book, you'll like understand. So here's like a perfect example, right? This is Kubrick changed the color of the car that Jack Torrance drives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought it was a yellow car.
I think it is a yellow car,
movie.
but in the book it's a red car. My bad.
Okay.
And then there's a scene later on where the cook character, so he almost can't even get to the overlook. He has to like drive like a snowplow to get out there. But while he's driving through the snowstorm, there's a car accident on the road.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's such a brief shot, but as he briefly looks to the road, it's basically the red car described as in the book as Jack Torrance's car is completely totaled and smashed.
Okay, gotcha.
And so I guess when Stephen King saw this, he viewed this as Kubrick being like, fuck you. That like that I'm destroying that car. Like that car, that represents the Stephen King story.
Yeah.
I'm destroying that. I'm obliterating it. I'm saying this is my story.
I see.
So it's little things like that, I guess, that kind of really irked Stephen King. Like it made it really kind of personal that he was almost like, somebody's like not just fucking with my book, but they're doing it to fuck with me almost. Yeah. For another example is like, so a really big detail in the movie that was created by Kubrick is the hedge maze. There is no hedge maze in the book. Instead, it's like Edward Scissorhand animal bushes.
Oh, okay.
That eventually come to life.
Yeah.
And I think Kubrick was like, yeah. Yeah, so he went with the maze, which I'm glad he did. Like it almost feels like that should be in the book, the maze. Yeah. But it was, he went for something a little bit simpler, but also something that would be more effective. If he did, it'd have to be like stop
weird
motion
or
weird, like, I don't know, people in costumes as head mage animals, and they'd have to do like perspective shooting with it. A lot of that stuff is in the TV movie.
Okay, gotcha.
And it doesn't, even in the 90s with CGI, it doesn't work. He also breaks through the door, not with an axe, but with a croquet mallet, which I have no problem with.
Oh, yeah, I do remember
that'd actually be
hearing
unique. Yeah, I think that's kind of a unique little thing instead of an axe.
It's just the axe is so much more threatening. I don't know, it's so much more sinister.
Yeah. Well, it's just, we all, how many people play croquet, right? So.
Yeah, well, and it's almost kind of like, okay, yeah, you can beat somebody with it, but you can't kill them. I mean, you can kill them, but it's just
it doesn't
it's
cut.
less threatening that way.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. But
well, on that note, I think we'll leave because it's an ambiguous ending in the movie The Shining. Then we'll leave it ambiguously in terms of, I don't fucking know what's going on in that movie.
Yeah, so Kevin does not like his ambiguous moments.
No, I like movies that like say something you can understand.
It's okay, not everybody has to watch a movie and have to think.
Yeah. I don't like thinking.